Okay, it's 3:01, so we're going to move forward. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today, where the focus of this town hall is not on COVID-19. No COVID-19 questions are going to be answered today. I'm always happy for you to send me an email if you have such a question, and I will respond. But today, we're going to focus on the long-range plan for the university. We have 5 speakers today after myself who are going to talk about the process of developing the plan as well as the 4 themes that have been developed. Before we get to that, we do want to know who's on the call. There are 269 of you right now, and so we're going to pop up a survey question so that you can tell us who's on the call. Just take 20 seconds to answer that. You guys are old pros at doing this now. And so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see who we've got on the call. Great. 174 staff, 40 faculty members, and 24 others, including administrators. Very good. All right, here we go. I'm going to kick this off and frame us up a little bit and then turn it over to our first speaker. You all know that Missouri State University has never been an institution that waits around for things to happen. We make things happen. We've had to make things happen. And that's true whether it's been the public affairs mission, Idea Commons, the name change, we get things done. In recent years, we fought for funding increases and leaned into public-private partnership opportunities. We've been the second largest university in the state for some time, but we've become much more recognized and respected in the last 10 years. Our profile is higher, our influence is greater. So when we began working on a new long-range plan this year, we decided to infuse it with our entrepreneurial spirit and take a little different path in how it's developed and presented. Our plans in the past have been good, very good. They've helped us get to this point in our history, but we wanted the new plan to allow for faculty, staff, and students to dream bigger. I actually challenged the steering team to embrace big ideas, and they have crafted a plan that does that. You will not see a plan that sets out a list of things we hope to accomplish in the next 5 years. What you will see instead is a plan that tells stories and gives examples of big ideas we might turn into reality. We want you to see yourselves and your units or your departments or your colleges in the stories. We want them to inspire other ideas and have you think about how you can join in on the ideas you hear today. This allows more people to be creative and to develop the action items and programs rather than have them imposed from a top-down manner. The hope is that all divisions and colleges will work to align themselves with the themes of this plan, and together we will answer questions like these. What academic programs need to be redesigned to meet the needs of our state or our students? How can we work across department, college, or division lines to begin a new program? How can we make students and employees of color feel more at home? How can we partner with others in town or around the world to enrich the student experience, engage in cutting-edge research, or address a local problem? While this is a different kind of plan, we will have metrics and we will be accountable to the Board of Governors for achieving those metrics. Steering team members are here today to update you on the progress and to get your input. Remember to use the chat function to ask long-range plan, not COVID-19 questions. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Roselle, who is Associate Dean in the College of Business, to get us started. Libby, take it away.
Thanks, Cliff, and good afternoon, everyone. My role here today is to provide a brief introduction for today's presenters. Our purpose, we want to make sure is clear. Our purpose is to get your input on this plan. The long-range plan is a university-wide effort. And you know, in the strategic planning process, our long-range plan is at the center point of that. and should provide direction for the university as a whole, and really should guide all decisions that we make across the campus. We're presenting this information, and we need and we want your input and your feedback on the plan that we have. As Clif mentioned, the plan is not presented as a traditional long-range plan. On the next slide, we talk about how we took an entrepreneurial approach. It really does reflect the spirit of our university. Lots of examples exist of how we have been entrepreneurial. I've got some examples here on the slide. I think Clif and his team had a great vision of getting an equity increase in our core appropriations. Clif and his team was able to do that, and I'm sure that that took some creative maneuvering to make that happen. We also show an entrepreneurial spirit in terms of using new market tax credits to fund the fourth expansion of JVIC. Another example, public-private partnership for our new residence hall. And there are numerous examples of faculty and staff also exhibiting the entrepreneurial spirit of our campus. Examples that I have listed here, but there are many others. The Boys and Girls Club scholarships, the dual credit scholarships, and we really have done a great job of developing all kinds of undergraduate certificates. Now, as Clif said, the plan is not presented in a traditional format. And again, that was in keeping with our entrepreneurial spirit. So what you'll see is we've developed some themes, and then we've developed some stories that illustrate the themes that incorporate some of our big ideas. We kept the public affair mission at the center of our discussions. And as you know, the three pillars are ethical leadership, cultural competence, and community engagement. We focused on the future with our public affairs mission in mind. So after much deliberation, we developed 4 themes for the long-range plan, and you can see them on the slide here. The first is evolving academic directions for future careers. We examined academic directions through a variety of stakeholder lenses. We looked at it from faculty viewpoint, students viewpoint, staff viewpoint. We looked at how we might deliver courses in the future. We looked at specific academic disciplines and programs, and we had great input from the provost committee on the academic part of the long-range plan. Global engagement was the second theme we developed, and that parlays nicely in with the cultural competence pillar in our public affairs mission. We want our campus to have a global mindset, and in many ways we already do. We recognize the interconnectedness of our world. The third theme, inclusive excellence driving university success. This theme, I think we really tried to infuse it throughout the plan. We're weaving this theme throughout all of the themes. We know that our campus can do better in this area, but we need your help in coming up with the best ideas on how to move us forward in this area. Fourth theme, community leadership and partnerships. This is right in line with the community engagement piece of our public affairs mission. We know how important partnerships are for both parties, and we want to continue making those valuable relationships. So the process for the long-range plan was we all attended a futurist workshop. We spent lots of time exploring themes that we might propose And then we spent more time developing stories that provide examples of the themes and what MSU could be like in 5 to 10 years. The next slide shows a timeline, how we progressed. During the fall semester, again, we attended the Futures Workshop led by EAB, the consulting group that we worked with. And then our steering team attended several webinars with the EAB consultants as we tried to flesh out what the themes were going to be. And we also spent several sessions exploring the themes and then developing those. That was all in the fall. Then January through March, we did a deep dive into the themes and came up with some stories that you can see on our website. April and May, we're taking a campus tour and speaking to lots of different groups. We're talking to all kinds of campus groups, talking to alums, different types of community organizations. And our goal in all of these presentations is to get your input. We need input from lots of different constituents. Okay, in May, we hope to have a final draft to the Board of Governors, and then finally in June, we hope to have it approved. The next slide looks at the approach that we used in developing the themes. The stories that we developed were developed to spark a conversation for other big ideas. And so we structured our conversation around where the university is now. And then we did an environmental scan where we looked at signals of change. We looked at potential opportunities that may exist, some threats that we need to be aware of. And we tried to look 5 to 10 years into the future to see what we thought the university should look like and what we need to do now in order to get there. We considered the goals and aspirations for the university in 5 to 10 years. And then we did identify some big ideas. Some are new, some are currently being considered. They are not funded yet, but they could be in the future. But we're open to hearing other ideas. And that's where you all come in. We want to hear what you think about the stories and the themes that are presented today. And here's the question that we challenge you to think about. Is this the future we want to bring about for Missouri State? So keep that question in mind as you hear the different presenters talk about the themes. This slide shows the membership of the steering committee. We were led by Suzanne Shaw and Sean Wall. We have a nice mix, if you look down through the names there, nice mix of administrators, faculty, staff, and we had a student member. It was a great group. They were fun, creative, open-minded, but again, there could be something that we didn't think about. We know we have great people all across campus that are creative and that have great ideas. So again, I really want to stress, we want to hear from you. Last slide for me is the site where you can go and look at all the themes and the stories. You can go to that website there on the slide, and on that website you can provide input and feedback to us on all the themes and the stories. So now we're off to the races with Mark on the first theme of academic directions.
Well, thank you, Libby. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. I think we're over the 350 mark now. So a great turnout for a Friday afternoon as we get close to the end of the semester. So evolving academic directions to future careers, I think, is somewhat self-explanatory, is how do we continue to move forward and envision the future with what our academic offerings need to look like as careers, as society look to change. And that connection is going to be increasingly important between what we do in the university and what a student is going to face when they're out in their first jobs, their second jobs, their 10th job, as we will talk a little bit about. So in this concept, we talked a lot about what the community and state needs. We talked about how we can be innovative, how we can be creative. And as we've heard many, many times, and you will continue to hear, how can we be somewhat entrepreneurial? And then with that, to be proactive and predictive, not necessarily reactive. Let's be the first to do something, not react to somebody that's already doing it. So when we talk about that, it's not just the classroom we look at, it's beyond the classroom. And we need to move beyond the classroom. And what does that look like? Well, that's just not the program offerings or the courses that we teach or the classes or the certificates. It's a bigger picture when we look at what we talk about academically. And this isn't a shock to anybody, but it includes that research. It includes service. It includes our connections with the community, with our partnerships. Because reality is teaching and learning occurs at any time in any format. And our responsibility is to do that. So we need to continue to embrace what makes higher education special, and an ability to discover the new understanding that society needs. And as the slide ahead here talks a little bit about, a lot of what that's going to look like in the future is that fueling of partnerships in innovative and collaborative ways as we look to important variables such as strategic growth, student interests, industry demands, societal needs are all things that we need to look at. In addition to that, we've looked at student access, our ability to recruit, and of course, retain through completion. Where higher education is going to be increasingly asked to justify, why would I want to be there? Well, because we will help that student, that person, that faculty member with their career, whatever that shall be, and whatever it starts with, as you'll hear a little bit later, to whatever it may end up being. And we've got to be able to be responsive for that, and not just 18 to 22-year-old traditional students, but through the lifespan, through their careers. So as Libya said, and I'm just going to keep on this slide for a little bit and moving in before, we did this through narratives and we did this through stories. And this is, I get to be the first one to start talking about stories. So the ones I'm going to share with you today, we're going to have 3 stories over 3 different areas. I want you to think about it as if it's grounded in a reality that it can be done, but it's got this sense of attainable fiction. It's not there yet. It's something that we haven't done yet. And I would challenge you all that's on here to think, how else can we do these things? Again, I'm not talking, and I've used this phrase a couple of times, not talking sci-fi. We're talking visionary. We're talking possible. We're talking 5 years, maybe 10 years. We're also talking moving quicker. And we're also talking being strategically able to move faster, and hit those societal needs through our evolving academic directions, which is the theme. So I get to do what I'm going to do today, and it's a little unusual for me and a little uncomfortable. So bear with me. Is we're going to read through some of the stories, and what you see on there is a different type of graphic. And honestly, what you're seeing here is the document for the 4-year plan for the strategic plan. So the first one of these is one of the things that is a theme that's come out is our ability to do different offerings, and a big push is that professional doctorate. And I'm going to read the story, which is at the bottom of the screen for you, because we learn in different ways. So the first one, Olivia attended a regional university in Missouri and earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. After she graduated, she moved to Springfield to work as a children's service worker for the Missouri Department of Social Services, Children's Division. After a few years working for the state, Olivia decided she was interested in becoming a psychologist. She learned about the Collaborative Doctor of Psychology program, the PsyD, run by Missouri State University and Borough Behavioral Health. Missouri State faculty members teach classes at the university and see clients at Borough. And employees of Borough see clients at Borough, but also teach at the university. This arrangement appealed to Olivia because as a student, she would learn from professors who are not only knowledgeable about teaching psychology, but also current practitioners. Olivia would also be able to do her clinical hours at the Borough MSU Clinic for Mental Health. The clinic serves youth and adult homeless populations and uninsured patients. During her years working with families in the Department of Social Services, Olivia knows that mental health is a significant underlying problem with many families in the system. she's excited to take this next step in her education and career and to help meet the mental health needs of the community. So hopefully there's a lot of big things in there and a lot of things that are not here. They're the big ideas at the top of the screen. And hopefully you could hear that through that. It's connecting with the community in terms of not only content, but populations that need support. It's an opportunity to create different workload structures for faculty who need to practice, but also to do research and to provide that education. It's partnering in an area that we know is going to be an area of academic growth and a community need in mental health and the need of psychologists, counselors. It's creating an opportunity to not only work as an academic, but also to continue to be that professional, that clinic coordinator or that clinician, if you will. So that's our first story. And in this case, I did the story and then hopefully you heard the big ideas. But as we move to our second story or second theme here is, as I set it up a little bit earlier, we also need to be responsive. It needs to be quicker. We need to be agile is the word that we've used a lot in the past year and for obvious reasons. And because the landscape is shifting. If there's nothing that we've witnessed and learned from the past year is that we have traditionally said, well, yeah, it could be done, but why do we need to? It's working the way it is. Well, we had to pivot, and is a word that we've overused. And I give credit to a faculty member that reminded me of that yesterday. And we've said, oh, that can't be done, but it was able to be done. We were robust. We were comprehensive. We were able to do different things quickly in an agile fashion. And how are we going to do that? Well, we got to be jumping my slides here, but we got to look at it through developing what we talk about is this preparing citizens for the world, is back to our very quick notion of power skills, is accessibility for all, is that tied into our very, very true to our mission that we are grounded in public affairs, driven by that ethical leadership and community engagement and cultural competence. And you will hear all of this through the other three themes and hopefully the overlapping of all of it. And we need to, that's our focus. That's who we are. That's what our academic program should be. And another part of this is some of the concepts of changing signals. And when we talk about signals is what's the world telling us that we as higher education institution members and need to know? Well, one of it, and I've already highlighted it, is we know that more and more people are changing careers more rapidly, quickly, and in very, very different directions. So we need to be prepared and we need to be able to move with them, to be there ready when they're ready to change direction. And the second story, which we're going to move to here, is an example of a very big idea. And in this particular case, I'm going to share the big idea first, is why can't we go to an alumni subscription program where those that have graduated can continue to come get professional development credits, continuing education credits, retool for a different life or different career for future decisions they're going to make. And I'm going to read this one, and this is about Abby. Abby earned an art history degree from Missouri State. When she graduated, she joined the university's lifelong program. A small annual subscription allows Abby to take classes at the university at no cost or at a substantially reduced cost. The program starts at a very low cost, increases marginally through mid-career, and then decreases until it becomes free at age 55. After graduation, Abby starts working as a sales associate in the gift shop at the St. Louis Art Museum. While volunteering as a docent at the museum, she worked in the position for a few years and then transferred to a position as a museum technician. Abby learned that she really enjoyed the business aspects of the museum, so she started thinking about moving into administrative areas of running a museum. Using a lifelong student program, Abby started taking business classes through the College of Business. When an assistant director position opened at the Campbell House Museum, she applied and got the position. She decided to pursue the management graduate certificate to learn more about ways to manage resources, analyze needs, and set goals. After several years, Abby and a coworker decided that they wanted to open their own art boutique, the Entrepreneurial graduate certificate was the ideal program to prepare her. Abby and her partner now run a successful art boutique in the Central West End. The lifelong student program helped prepare her to find a fulfilling career that combines her love of art and entrepreneurial spirit. So I hope through that story, it kind of gives that sense that we're willing and we need to be able to support our students, not just when they're here, but as they want and learn to grow and do different things in different directions. And they think of us as that connective tissue, if you will, to help with those dreams and those goals or those changing signals in the community that they want to do. And the last one, and the last big idea or the thing is something that I think is very apparent, and it's actually probably the closest to what we've had to experience and what we've dealt with in many, many ways this past year, is that we've got to look at forging our traditional with our high-tech modalities. We've got to be able to, yes, pivot and be the one that provides cutting-edge practices regarding delivery. And they can be contemporary. They need to be high impact. They need to be based on industry. They need to also be foundational concepts. They need to support the liberal arts mission. All things that we can do outside of the ways we've always done it, but not losing who we are, which is that public affairs mission, is that ability to support our students as they move and they grow. And that goes into our next slide here, which is about the community needs part. So how do we reskill, and what does this look like? Well, through the academic task force that was created by the provost in the fall and reported to this steering committee in early spring, there is a huge amount of work that was done on looking at what types of programs are we going to be needing to look at for the future. And they're on the right-hand side there. So data science, mental health, healthcare. I don't think any of those is a surprise. STEM, sustainability. And then in this particular case, technology assisted in all aspects in healthcare delivery. And those are some of the driving forces of community needs and community areas. That's who we are. We're that community partner, and we need to be able to look and to do that. So our last story is about John, and John is there we go. John Williams is a biotechnology research specialist in the Dar College of Agriculture. Originally from Kansas City area, John came to MSU as a member of a faculty cohort cluster hire. He and other members of the cohort joined Missouri State to strengthen its focus on sustainability and STEM programs. Members of his cohort hold faculty appointments across the campus. John found his calling in plant science research and is pursuing his graduate work in that area. His research focuses on developing drought-tolerant food crops. He values the opportunity to participate in research at MSU with some of the world's leading scholars in biotechnology. But recently, John, who has trouble walking long distance, has experienced advances in fieldwork practice. Differing technologies have provided access to field research, including the use of drones. He and his students can catalog data without having to travel on foot to each test site. John now uses a drone to view soil conditions, measure vegetation growth, and gather samples. So whether in the lab or in the field, John respects Missouri State's commitment to sustainability and sees progress being made in the areas surrounding STEM programs. And there's a couple of really big ideas in here. And one in particular, and it's kind of subtle, but it's right there, is this notion of a cluster hire. And what that really looks like is a cluster hire is saying, here's an area that we need to invest in right now across multiple units, programs, colleges, to look at a big idea or big area. In this particular case, bordering on that notion of sustainability. It could be data science. It could be mental health. It could be healthcare. And it's working quickly to get the right people in to allow the unit and the university to pivot again and move in those directions. The other part of this is the obvious one, is this need to greater use of technology. And we've demonstrated very, very well in this past year that we can do that. And we're going to continue to do that. So I think of the last slide as we move forward. So we got the last slide here? No, and that is the last slide. So with that, Suzanne, I'm passing it back to you, I guess.
Well, I have a question for you, Mark. So when we developed the alumni stories, did we consider talking with faculty in the department in the areas of these stories?
The alumni story in this,
I think any of the stories that we're telling.
Yes, in fact, a lot of the conversations were happening, as you can see, the steering committee here in general is a wide, broad group. As we were looking through these, it was shared with a variety of different faculty groups and representative groups as we could. So all of the stories are grounded in, as I said earlier, in that sense of reality, but also a sense of possibility. So absolutely. And again, there's a few things we got to keep flushing out. And as I said, sometimes when we create a story, we need to continue to look at the implications and building through it. And as I said, it's a story, it's a narrative, it's a dream. So yes, we did. Is a long-winded answer to a yes. Sorry, Suzanne, I do that a lot. You know that already.
And I think too, as Libby noted, we came up with these stories are to spark ideas about the stories that you might have and be dreaming about that you might be able to do in your department, whether you are faculty or staff. And so I know when we presented last week, we almost had this brainstorming session with the group that we were presenting to because we had, this one idea that triggered something else from the audience that triggered something else. And so this long range plan will give all of our academic and departmental units this opportunity to, come up with their own stories that will be part of their goals for the coming year.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback really quickly, because I know we got a lot of information, but that was, I think, one of the founding concepts of this group is that it's not restrictive. It's not, we need to build a doctorate degree or a professional doctorate degree in A. It was what possibilities are out there for multiple programs or doctoral degrees or cluster hires or certificates. So we were trying not to pigeonhole ourselves into must do A. It's A is let's be creative. Let's be able to be reactive and be agile rather than, and I said it in another meeting, check off, done that. We should never have just check off, done that. We should be continually looking to grow and adapt on the academic side, as well as the amazing 3 themes that you're going to hear about next as well.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So our next presenter is Dr. Lyle Foster. He's an assistant professor in sociology and anthropology in the College of Humanities and Public Affairs.
Oh, excuse me. I was just about to sit down and eat my lunch. There's this really cool new restaurant called Brittany's Snack Shop, and it's right around the corner from here in Idea Commons. But I want to tell you about how Brittany got started with her restaurant and all of the neat things going on at Missouri State in just a few years into the future. Yeah, we're still wearing masks, but not everybody wears them now. It's no longer necessary, but there are some days that I wear them. So that explains why I've got a mask in the future, in case you're wondering. My name is Lyle Foster. I'm on the faculty at Missouri State. And I want to tell you for BNN, Bears News Network, this latest neat story about what Missouri State is doing as part of our Community Partnerships program. Today we're telling you the story of Brittany. And Brittany was one of our Great Bear members. And she went to Pattonville High School, which was one of the most diverse high schools in the St. Louis area. Of course, when she came to Missouri State on her campus tour, she really wasn't quite sure how well she would fit in because she noticed it wasn't the same amount of diversity at Missouri State. But the way things happened, she got an inclusive, excellent scholarship that provided money for tuition. It also included money to support an internship experience. She met current students and some of the Black faculty during a campus visit, and she said, Missouri State, here I come. And we are so glad that she did. So she studied, of course, hospitality leadership. And one of the neat things about the hospitality leadership program is during her junior year, she took the restaurants management class, and she got to work in Carrie's Cafe, which is an on-campus restaurant operated by Missouri State hospitality students. And let me tell you, that food is off the chain. It's really good. She learned all aspects of running a restaurant and decided she wanted to open her own restaurant. Go Brittany, you got it. And so during her junior year, she entered a pitch competition and she won a 3-year student entrepreneurial grant to actually run her own restaurant. She connected with a local organization called Minorities in Business, which is one of community partners for Missouri State. And with Minorities in Business, she had mentoring, she had support, and she learned a lot of the ins and outs of really being a successful entrepreneur. She also was able to benefit from all of the programs offered by Missouri State's E-Factory. Brittany got a lot of support and a lot of help. The first year of her grant, she actually opened a food truck in the Idea Commons. In fact, it was right across the street down by our just opened Riverwalk. Can you believe that? A Riverwalk in downtown Springfield. We are really doing something down here, and it was amazing. That did so good in terms of her food truck, and that was part of a whole community effort. She decided to open her own restaurant, and that's where I just left. Her restaurant is right around the corner, but I came over here to sit down and chill, enjoy my food, and kind of people watch because there's so much happening down on the Idea Commons. Thank you. Again, signing off for Bears News Network, this is Lyle. Thank you.
Good afternoon. In case you're wondering what the future is like, it's very windy. That was a quick trip back to 2021. Thank you, Mark. I hope all of you will agree that we have a lot to look forward to in the future. Community leadership and partnerships help shape Springfield's future. Missouri State University is strongly linked to Springfield and Southwest Missouri, and our partnerships also extend far beyond the region into Missouri and beyond. I'd like to highlight a few of these partnerships that are so important in our community. Our campus, Missouri State, has been a cornerstone of downtown revitalization and Springfield's economic development. The university's substantial investment in its downtown campus has spurred downtown's growth into a community with places to live, work, and play. In 2004, Missouri State introduced the vision for Idea Campus, an innovation park in downtown Springfield. It's a collaborative community effort that brings together corporations, the university, residential lofts, nonprofits, office, and retail space. It's really a hub where people from all walks of life can live, shop, learn, create, and work. The university's investment in downtown has served as a catalyst for vibrant growth. Jordan Valley Innovation Center, JVIC, Brick City, and the Robert W. Plaster Free Enterprise Center make up much of the core of the area. We can say that these projects have redefined the area in an extremely positive way. In 2020, the E-Factory at the Robert W. Plaster Free Enterprise Center helped more than 25 businesses get started. That's an amazing accomplishment. They helped the companies create more than 280 new jobs and secure more than $17 million in capital and equity. These are impressive figures indeed. JVIC is a university private sector research development and commercialization model that focuses on product development, research, and educational opportunities. The facility focuses on collaboration and affiliates on new technologies and accelerating them to viable markets. This helps accelerate new product development and integration of these technologies. As we contemplate the future, the university, public and private collaboration will continue to drive downtown development. Missouri State will continue to be an integral part of downtown development. The university will leverage public and private funds to expand JVIC and the Plaster Center. JVIC's expansion will allow for continued growth of the center's research program and affiliates. Plaster Center expansion will allow for an expansion of the startup services offered in Central Springfield. The expansion of these two facilities will bring new businesses to the community and will allow many entrepreneurs to start their own new businesses. These expansions are part of a larger project that also includes a new office building, green space, gathering areas, and a parking structure. Daylighting Jordan Creek will create a park-like area to tie all the projects together. And you may have noticed in the video that this exciting project has come to fruition and is now one of the favorite gathering spots in downtown in our near future. And yes, for me, it's a personal favorite. The food truck park is a Friday night destination in the near future. Student entrepreneurial grants will also allow students to work with coaches at the E-Factory to launch new businesses. When we think of the big ideas, we think of initiatives like these: our Inclusive Excellence Scholarship, which includes funding to allow students to participate in internships or practical experiences during that sophomore, junior, or senior year. And Brittany, who I was highlighting, she received one of these scholarships. The Student Entrepreneurial Grant Competition provides funding, support, and mentorship to help them start a business. We have already heard the story of Brittany from Maryland Heights, but we have a few more stories that we'll also be sharing in the next few minutes. Community engagement. It's a core component of the university's public affairs mission, and it's really one that I deeply resonate with. From service learning classes to internships and practicums to research and service projects, campus members partner with organizations, agencies, and governments to improve communities. Many of Missouri State's academic programs are also linked to the community. For example, nursing students provide services in MSU Care, a primary care clinic for uninsured, low-income adults, which is housed on the Missouri State campus. Our sociology program focuses on community engagement, which is a key initiative and very in line with the public sociology focus of our department. And we're really one of the few sociology departments in the nation that really has this public sociology focus. So it's a great match for what we're doing in the future. Students work with community organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the Salvation Army, AIDS Project of the Ozarks, and of course, so many others. These are just a few examples of how academic programs are integrated into the community. Our students are engaged with the community through service learning, classes, and community engagement projects. In 2019-20, Missouri State offered 863 courses that involve service learning. I think I'll say that again. 863 courses that involve service learning. That's incredible. These classes combine academic achievement and work with a community learning site. Almost 6,400 students enrolled in these classes, and they contributed more than 160,000 hours to the community. What a contribution. Students will connect with the community continually in these meaningful ways as we look into the future, because community engagement is a core component of Missouri State's public affairs mission. Many students become involved in the community through service learning, classes, volunteer opportunities, as well as internships and practicums. In the future, this community engagement will be integrated throughout a student's education. For example, all GEP 101 classes will include a meaningful community engagement project. Students will learn about a community problem and how it's been addressed. They will see how these community agencies operate and meet the people who are being served. All students will be required to take at least one additional service learning class in their major before they graduate. These courses will teach students how their chosen profession, whether it's art, accounting, biology, or anything else, can benefit others. As students near the end of their studies, they will have the opportunity to have paid internships or practicum experiences with nonprofit organizations. The students will be paid through funds provided by the university or through grants and donations. Meaningful engagements throughout their time at Missouri State will allow students to develop connections with the community and develop a passion for service. Students will become more connected with the community and more will decide to make Springfield their home. What a wonderful future. One of the great initiatives that our future holds is that these programs will pay students to work at nonprofit agencies. Pre-med, post-baccalaureate program will prepare students for medical school. Our service learning inspires students to pursue their medical degrees. For example, in the story of Alicia that you see before you, and just like Mark, we'll share a couple more stories. She grew up in Willow Springs, attended Missouri State West Plains, and was the first person in her family to attend college. Personally, that's one of the things that I so admire about our university, how many first-generation students matriculate on our campus. During her second year at MSU West Plains, she learned about the transfer scholarship offered by MSU Springfield. Between the scholarship and need-based aid, she was enabled to enroll at the Springfield campus after she earned an Associate of Science in Health Professions. After graduating, she transferred to Missouri State Springfield and entered the Health Services program. She intended to return to Willow Springs and work in one of the medical clinics there. During her junior year, Alicia participated in a program where Missouri State paid her to work at Jordan Valley Health Center. What a neat place, which is a federally qualified health center. She worked with patients and their families to help them feel comfortable as they waited for tests. She loved the interaction with their patients. I'm going to skip a little paragraph just for time. Her advisor told her about the National Health Service Corps Scholarship Program, which awards scholarships to students to attend medical school. In return, students agreed to work in an area where there are shortages of healthcare services. One challenge Alicia faced was that the health services program didn't include courses that were required to apply to medical school. Her advisor, however, told her about Missouri State's post-baccalaureate pre-med program. The program offers the courses a student needs to apply to medical school. During the program, advisors also work with students to prepare them to successfully apply to medical school. Alicia graduated with her health services degree. She completed the pre-med program and was accepted into medical school. Congratulations, Alicia, way to go. And after she completes medical school, she's going to return back to Willow Springs to work, which was always one of her original goals, to go back to her home community. Of course, there are other community partnerships as well. Faculty members, and we're so appreciative of the hard work of our faculty members. They have been tremendous catalysts for community growth. They have helped create the Fairbanks, a major nonprofit on the north side of our city, the Springfield Greene County African American Heritage Trail, Springfield's first community focus report, and the Rural Schools Partnership, and of course, so many more initiatives. Missouri State faculty and staff are very involved in our community. They serve in local elected positions, partner with community organizations, and of course, they serve on the board of businesses and many nonprofit organizations. As our needs are identified in the community, we see over and over again that many of the university community step up to address them. Missouri State has been an active partner with the city, chamber, and other organizations to increase diversity in the community. Initiatives that are being led by the university, like the Facing Racism Institute, have expanded to help make the community and our businesses more welcoming to our growing population of diverse residents. Community engagement will be more fully integrated into academia. As part of the tenure system, faculty members are evaluated for their teaching, research, and university service. So faculty members can already get teaching waivers when they're involved in these large research projects or university service responsibilities. But in the future, the university will allow faculty members to apply for teaching waivers when they're involved in large community service projects. Hopefully this resonates with faculty in our town hall audience today. Faculty members will be encouraged to become deeply and meaningfully involved in significant community projects. The teaching buyout will allow them to spend more time working on all of these projects. All projects will also involve students. This will have the dual purpose of providing community leadership to address important community problems and challenges, and it will also allow students to have these meaningful experiences as well. The university's public affairs mission will be more fully integrated into teaching and research. So we'll share one more great story, and this is a story about Community Art School, which provides free art lessons to low-income high school students. This flexible workload arrangement allows our faculty members to pursue non-traditional roles at the universities. Here's the story of Mason. Grew up in Springfield. As a child, he was always singing or humming. Some of you may have students like that or children like that. He was a good student and involved in sports and school activities. In music classes at school, he loved them and really enjoyed them, but he didn't really see music as a big part in his life. When he attended Reed Academy for middle school, he participated in a choral program that partners with Missouri State. During that program, his enjoyment of music grew stronger and stronger. So in high school, Mason took all the music classes he could. He loved singing and he was learning to play an instrument. While he came from a stable household, his family didn't have a lot of additional resources for him to take private lessons. One of his music teachers told him about Missouri State's Community Art School. The Community Art School is run by a faculty member in the Reynolds College of Arts and Letters, whose workload includes 70% traditional faculty roles and 30% running the school. So MSU art students are paid to work in the school and provide free music lessons and art classes to low-income students in the area. In their senior year, These same students can get free dual credit through the university. Mason took vocal and instrumental lessons, and in his senior year, he earned 6 hours of college credit. The experience he had with Missouri State students convinced him that it was a great college for him. Mason applied for it and was awarded a music scholarship to attend Missouri State. He's now a junior and is working at the Community Arts School. Our partnerships are leveraged in these stories and in our communities. And of course, with that in mind, we know what a future, what a university. So for Mason, for Brittany, for Alicia, and many more bears, the future is Bear Bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Foster. And we're happy you made it back from your trip to the future safely. So we have a couple more questions. Will there be a formal channel to propose innovative projects for the long-range plan that will require donor or special funding? We're going to have a lot of opportunities for you to propose projects or new stories. And one way you can do that is if you go to the long-range plan website. There's the opportunity to provide new big ideas that are bigger than maybe what we offered, or different from what we present in these stories here today. And so we welcome your ideas and hope that you will join us and input those into the input forms that are provided on the website. Another question is, will employee salaries increase significantly during the next 5 years as part of the long-range plan? That is always our goal, to raise salaries, and certainly some of these stories that you see are actually some revenue-generating stories, but that's always a goal of the university. We have, let's see. We have a couple of questions here that are more inclusive excellence related. That's going to be our next topic. So we're going to hold those questions till after that topic is presented, so we can kind of tie that all together. Let's see, the future is already here. MSU already requires GEP 101 students to complete meaningful community service. We can certainly expand it by including UHC 110 students. And I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what UHC 110 students are, so that all first-time new in college students complete community service work in their first year. I will say that some of our stories include some reality-based facts, and then we have tried to expand upon them to be more, a little bit broader in the future, and so that they're included in more of our classes. So you'll see that coming up as well. Let's see. Okay, so we are going to now look to Aja Jones. She is the Director of Student Athlete Development and Community Relations, and she will be presenting Inclusive Excellence today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. I know we're in at about an hour or so, so hopefully you stretch your legs out, limbs and everything, and hang on with us just a little bit longer. So I get the privilege of talking about inclusive excellence, driving university success, which is something that we hear a lot about. I feel like inclusive excellence is something that is not new to our university. However, I don't know if everyone fully understands exactly what it means. It can be quite a complex definition. So just wanted to go ahead and put that out there very quickly and kind of read through what exactly inclusive excellence means. And according to the Association of American Colleges and Universities, it is the active, intentional, just going to go ahead and say those two things again, active, intentional, and ongoing engagement with diversity. So that means with people, with the curriculum, with the co-curriculum, and in communities. And it's in ways that increase one's awareness, content knowledge, cognitive sophistication, and empathetic understanding of the complex ways individuals interact within systems and institutions. So there is a lot there. However, we want to make sure that we're kind of thinking of our long-range plan in general with inclusive excellence in mind, because inclusive excellence and the entrepreneurial spirit are not mutually exclusive. And when we create an inclusive environment, when we're excellent in that area, people are usually their best selves. And so keeping that in mind as we go through the remaining themes, and you'll start to see where those all kind of tie in together. So as we look at our focus areas, cultural consciousness is the first. And so Missouri State is committed to being a culturally conscious leader in the Springfield community. It will deliver education, training, and growth opportunities to the campus and beyond, because these are things that are keys to developing engaged citizens and also diverse workplaces. And so Missouri State can definitely be a leader in that particular area. We know that diversity is real. It is a thing. There are all types of diversity, and diversity, as we know it, is continuously growing as well. Diverse populations make up 23% of the United States. And as the nation and state become more diverse, we have to think, how will Missouri State continue to provide access to educational opportunities? But we also know that diversity is not just racial and ethnic diversity. So at Missouri State, diverse populations include veterans, people with disabilities, first-generation students, members of the LGBTQ+ community, among others. And so how will we prepare students to work together in a diverse environment? We already do some great things here at Missouri State. We have our Facing Racism Institute. We have the Collaborative Diversity Conference, which I will say I was able to attend this year. It was virtual. It was free, which is always exciting. So being able to provide those kind of opportunities, I think, is critical if we are going to be a leader in this area. Also, the United Academy for Inclusion and Belonging, which is actually something that is relatively new. And this was launched by the United Way of the Ozarks to educate the Springfield Police Department employees, as well as nonprofit leaders, about foundational knowledge of social justice principles, which is extremely important as we continue to have these conversations, as we try to create the most inclusive environment that we can here in at Missouri State, but also in the Springfield community. And I know there were some questions tied to that that hopefully we'll get to. But Missouri State, as a leader in the community, in the state, in this area, we're going to usher in a new generation of citizens who value not just inclusion, but they value and support equity and justice, which I think is extremely important. So Missouri State will be an environment that engages the rich diversity of faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community partners, fosters a strong sense of belonging, is welcoming of opinions and viewpoints, challenges students to achieve academically high levels, and offers a personalized system of support to overcome barriers to education, and I would say ultimately success as well. And so as we get to our first story, we look at campus and community benefiting from diverse partnerships. So we meet Marcus, and Marcus is a graduate student in the College of Business pursuing his MBA with a focus in management. His goal is to work in human resources. And so Marcus is among a growing number of graduate students on campus who are maximizing their educational options through Missouri State's partnership with historically Black colleges and university. So Marcus gained his undergraduate degree from Tuskegee University. And during his junior year, Marcus found out that he could actually apply his TU business courses toward MSU's accelerated MBA program. Now, this is a big deal because number one, when you can complete your degree quicker, that's always a plus. But also when you can do it at with less money as well, when it's less expensive, obviously that is definitely something that we want to try and provide to our students. So since moving to the Springfield area, Marcus has built a diverse network through the Student African American Brotherhood, the student chapter of the Society for Human Resource Management, and the MSU Division of Diversity and Inclusion. And so Marcus's connection to the diversity and inclusion team opened the door to a lot of different resources for Marcus and opportunities beyond the classroom. And so his mentors from SAB and Diversity and Inclusion connected Marcus with leadership at City Utilities here in Springfield, where he secured a paid internship. Marcus is working toward becoming a hiring manager in the Human Resources Unit of City Utilities, and he's excited about the prospect of staying in the community he has grown to love. And I think the grown part is very crucial there. and also being a part of the company that supports a vibrant workforce of highly qualified, diverse employees. The big idea here is partnering with historically Black colleges and universities, allowing students to apply their undergraduate credit towards a master's degree at Missouri State University. That's definitely something that I think would set Missouri State apart. It would definitely speak to what we're trying to do as far as increasing, whether it be access, trying to bring students in and help them feel like they're a part of our community, and getting them connected with resources so that they do stay in Springfield and that they do find a connection and find a sense of belonging. So that is our big idea for our story 1. And as we move forward to our focus 2, we really want to focus on creating an actual sense of belonging here at the university. In 2009, Missouri State declared that inclusiveness is one of its top priorities. And so moving from grassroots efforts, the university has worked to enhance the culture of campus and the Springfield community. And it has demonstrated that an attitude that recognizes the value and contributions of all members of our community. But we know and we recognize that we still have a lot of work to do. And again, I think that comes to all of the feedback that we look forward to having from you all as how do we make that happen? So as we look at our campus climate study, which we do, we will work to raise the participation in those particular annual polls and positive responses too. If you look at how many responded, which is up on the slide, around 2,700 responded in year 1, but it was only 9% of the entire undergraduate student population that responded. 18 of which percentage was graduate students, 40% of the faculty group, and then 37% of staff and administrators. We value inclusiveness, fairness, equity, and social justice here at Missouri State. The recognition that each person possesses not just one, but multiple identities, and the celebration of the similarities as well as differences of our diverse campus. And in order to really make sure that we are focusing on those things, that we are really valuing those things, we have to hear from our constituents. We have to hear from students. We have to hear from our, grad students and our faculty and staff about how do you feel being here, and what can we do in order to make sure that you feel valued and you feel supported, because that's ultimately what we want. We want to weave inclusive excellence into the fabric of our campus. And so faculty and staff will feel welcome, but also will strengthen their awareness of cultural consciousness and civility through day-to-day interactions, and being, again, that word, intentional measures that cultivate a deepened understanding of self-awareness, because we all know that's where it starts. An appreciation of how other people make meaning of the world, mindfulness and the ability to be present in opportunities to learn and to understand, and the capacity to embrace and celebrate differences. Students will also gain knowledge and a broadened sense of responsibility with a foundation of core values infused into general education courses. Graduates will be engaged citizens in their community and beyond, and employers will benefit from a workforce that recognizes the significance and value of diversity and their obligation to be ethical leaders and culturally conscious members of society. So as we move to our next story, we're really trying to get a feel for campus culture transforming perspectives. And so we meet Nick, who is a Missouri State University junior from Kennett, Missouri, so southeast Missouri. He comes from a close-knit family with ties in the healthcare and educational communities back home. During high school, Nick played sports, was active in a variety of different activities, including National Honor Society, and he also began identifying with the LGBTQIA plus community. So during his first semester on campus, Nick grew to appreciate its welcoming vibe, and he recalls his general education courses really setting the tone for what he should expect during his time at Missouri State. To begin with an open mind, to be accepting of others, to value and support equity and justice, and to search for and find opportunities to grow, connect, and succeed. So Nick joined several student organizations, including a faith-based group for members of the LGBTQ plus community. He also applied for and became a member of the Student Diversity and Leadership Institute. Nick is pursuing a degree in screenwriting. So discussions with his advisor piqued his interest in taking courses outside of his major to broaden his knowledge base. And it wasn't until he attended MSU that Nick began interacting with people from different races. So Soch 336, Race and Ethnicity, sounded like a class that could inspire storylines beyond his background. His professor not only brought in past and current topics relevant to the class, but also inspired students to share their views and experiences. And it was difficult to hear stories from those who had experienced incivility. However, it was powerful to hear students share their experiences about growing up in a community that believed and promoted racism. They didn't fully comprehend the degree of its offensive nature until their classroom engagements and campus experiences prompted a personal awareness. They have a new perspective, and they've changed their actions and words. What started out as a class that would fuel his major became something much bigger, and seeing transformation of thought and broadened perspective of his classmates. Now Nick tries to be more purposeful in his conversations and is becoming more comfortable talking with students from other cultures. And he appreciates that everyone has a story, and it makes them a lot more interesting. So that's something where we think about how we connect. General education courses can be they are so very important, but when we add that element to ensure that students are really being challenged with new ideas and new perspectives and interactions with new people, there's really an opportunity to really change people's lives in the way that they view the world. And as we look to our last focus area, it's individualized support. And we know that the digital age is full of potential and expectation, and college students have grown up with the ability to create a highly curated world. But we also know that students who have learning or financial challenges, who feel marginalized, who feel like they don't belong, who are overwhelmed, there's a growing need for those students for individualized support. So whether it's academic, mental well-being, access, or other barriers to success, Missouri State will try to work and provide inclusive, personalized assistance to each student in need. So utilizing contemporary connections both in person and digitally, Missouri State will meet the unique struggles of its students. So as we think about rising generation bringing increasing challenges, the percentage of U.S. adolescents reporting a major depressive episode in the past year, you can see the numbers. Anxiety, depression continues to increase. And so we know that we have to focus on mental health. And as more students learn remotely, access to critical student support services housed on campus or made available during inaccessible times will become increasingly important to provide through flexible formats. So with this in mind, we come to our next story, and we meet Victoria and Derek, who are mental health clinicians at Missouri State. Victoria is a mid-career Latina who lives in her hometown of Anderson, Missouri, while Derek is a young Black professional who moved to Springfield from Chicago. And both were drawn to providing mental health services in a college community, however, for much different reasons. Victoria recalls the struggles of being a first-generation student, trying to navigate all of the forms, the deadlines, the aid offerings, just to pursue her education. She fought to keep up in class and felt very alone in her struggles. After attaining her master's degree in counseling, Victoria moved back to her hometown to care for family. She wanted to work with college students, but needed an element of flexibility. The Counseling Center at Missouri State provides accommodation for remote services and 24/7 accessible student dashboards. Victoria sets her hours according to when students need help, without having to factor in things like daily commutes. Alerts on the dashboard allow her to provide a preventative assistance before distress becomes a crisis. Derek and his high school best friend Aiden began attending their freshman year. Aiden's transition was difficult. His struggle with depression and anxiety interrupted his college experience, and it's a memory that still motivates Derek to find a connection with students in need. After earning his undergraduate degree in psychology, Derek gained a graduate assistantship in the MSU Counseling Center, and the financial support of assistantship allowed him to pursue a master's degree in psychology, while the experience he acquired helped prepare him for a career working with college students. Now, as a full-time mental health clinician, he's helping students like Aiden deal with personal problems and get back on track. Derek knows that there are stressors underrepresented students experience that not every counselor can relate to. And his goal is to not only be a resource to Black students in need, but also those dealing with mental health conditions. Both Victoria and Derek believe in the foundational support they provide to Missouri State students, but they also appreciate the forward-thinking culture that acknowledges their sensitive work. And so there are a couple of big ideas here. The first being that the staff at the Counseling Center will reflect student demographics. It's so important that it's listed twice. So remote work is also something to explore. Victoria was able to do what she loved and provide meaningful, very, very important services to our students in a flexible format. And then the idea of counseling services available 24/7 for our students in need. So as we look to all of these different things, maybe these big ideas were big to you, maybe they didn't seem big enough, but again, it comes down to really providing us feedback and challenges so that we can help make sure that we're providing the best support services and environment that we can for our students, faculty, and staff.
Thank you, Aja. So we've received a number of questions with regard to inclusive excellence, and I can tell you that as a long-range plan and the long-range plan steering committee, we have worked hard to present a future for inclusive excellence throughout all of the themes. In fact, we want all of our themes to kind of run over into one another because they are such an integral part of the university. There are some of these questions that we're really not prepared to answer today. But I would like to recommend that President Smart will reach out to the individual who is asking those questions, and we'll set up a meeting to discuss them with you. And hopefully we'll be able to address some of your concerns. Certainly, some of our stories represent some of those areas that we are looking at in terms of support for graduate students, as you saw with the story of Marcus, and some of the other stories as well, as we provide a more diversity as we look to provide more diversity in our counseling centers, which we're doing already, but we want to expand that in the future. And so we do see a lot of opportunity and a lot of ideas that we hope to move forward with in the long range plan, but we also have a lot of existing programs and efforts that are taking place right now. And part of that is to provide a community of support for our underrepresented minorities across campus, not just on campus, but in the community as well. So I'll check in on some of the other questions. What kinds of efforts will be made to communicate these new ideas to legislators in Jefferson City to convince them to increase support for the university? As you may or may not know, we have a list of legislative priorities that we prepare every year to take to address during the legislative session with our legislators. And this year we were looking to, one of our focus was to get part of our core funding back. And that was our primary focus. But we also look for support for some of our programs, either at Idea Commons, in JVIC, or in West Plains. And certainly as we move forward with some of these big ideas and some of these big projects, we would find those to be on future lists for legislative priorities in 2022 through 2026. And you can find those legislative priorities on the website under the Office of the President under Legislative Priorities. And Clif, I think you wanted to answer the question, let's see, with regard to the long-range plans, correct?
Yes, and so there was a question asked, will Missouri State ask each college to develop a long-range plan for aligning with the university's plan? And then there was the observation that otherwise it would be hard to be implemented. Totally agree with that. And so what my plan, the provost and I have created, have talked about this, and we will meet with both our whole leadership, academic and non-academic leadership team this summer after the plan is adopted. And then we'll also meet with ALC Frank's leadership team. And that is exactly what we propose to do. So there was an earlier question about how do I get my big idea in? And it's the provost and I are going to ask each division, each college within the university to work together to see how they fit in with the 4 themes. So for example, Dean Smith gave an example of a new program, a PsyD program with Burl. And so you take that idea to other colleges and say, are there other new programs we should be working on? We know that's happening now, but that's a piece of what we would expect folks to do. And so the goal would be over the next 5 years of this plan that every part of the university is working on one or more of these themes, that we build on them together, and there's where the accountability comes in. And so ideas, we hope, will come through from every division, not just now as a part of creating the plan, but at the college level, at the student affairs division, at each division, there'll be opportunities for ideas to come in, for people to work on them, for groups to be formed, so that essentially everybody is creating what they're excited about, how they fit into the long range plan.
Thank you, Cliff. All right, next up we have Brad Bodenhausen. He will be presenting global engagement. Brad is the Associate Vice President for International Education and Training.
Thanks, Suzanne, and thanks to all the other speakers who presented the earlier themes. We are in the final stretch run of this relay. We're right on time, but we do want to leave plenty of time for further questions and interaction as we conclude with this topic. What I want to do is spend just a couple minutes on this first slide and set the stage, set the table for the conversation to follow, and for the stories we'll share looking at the future of global engagement at Missouri State. First of all, it's fairly apparent for everyone now that international education is really at a crossroads time. I mean, it's very obvious right now in this year we've experienced COVID, but there were a lot of trends already moving in that direction pre-COVID. We won't spend a lot of time going through those, but I want to acknowledge that from the start, because our process was really to look at signals, and a lot of these signals are not just responses to COVID that maybe were accelerated by what we've experienced through the past year. So that means that the next 5 years really will represent, we think, steps toward a new way to define what international education looks like, what global engagement looks like at Missouri State. So I want to break that down into a few categories, and you see them to some degree in the sentences on this slide. First is the way we currently look at international education, and that has a lot to do with student mobility. We look at the number of international students here on the Springfield campus. We look at the number of students, primarily American students, going abroad for study away, education abroad programs. You know, those two categories of students in a non-COVID year still only represent about 10% of our student body. So what we want to try to do is expand that definition, expand the opportunities to have access to international education and the intercultural learning and development that comes from that. Another category of students that we really have to remember that are part of Missouri State, are part of our international education programs, are students at our locations abroad, our branch campus in China, another campus location where we offer the first 3 years of a dual degree program in China. We have certainly international students online currently, and that'll continue to grow. It's not just a COVID reality, but international students taking Missouri State courses online for their home country. But if I could give you one headline to try to preview what this section, this theme would be about, it's really the idea of internationalization on campus, the idea of global engagement at home, here in Springfield, here on the Missouri State campus. We think that's the biggest opportunity for growth and improvement in the coming 5 years as we look at international education. You always have to start with the why. And just briefly, we've touched on it quite a bit today already, is the idea of our public affairs mission driving what we do. Well, that's certainly true in terms of international education and global engagement. So the mission calls us in that direction. Certainly, you look at the world today and the level of interconnectedness that we have, it's a necessity for our students, not just those 10%, but the other 90% too, to have international experience, intercultural competence and confidence, frankly, to be part of the world that includes 96% of the world's population is outside the borders of the US. And so even though our inclination a lot of times in situations like the current crisis is to look inward, to put up walls, to isolate, we see obviously how the virus doesn't respect those borders, and economies and technology and culture and our interconnection is proliferated to the point walling up countries is really not an effective strategy for the long term. The last reason why is something that's a little more idealized, but something we believe nonetheless, and I think that we see it in reality, and that's that a university campus really should be a place where local and global meet. You know, that's the way we're going to improve our ability to deal with other issues like climate change or economic challenges, health challenges in the future, is having those best ideas come from various places in the world, but connect and intersect on the local level. So how do we approach that at Missouri State? We'll shift to the second slide here, because if you accept the why, if you accept what I tried to share initially of why we do this, then we can shift a little bit to the how, because so much of what our effort has been about in the global engagement part of the long-range planning process is to understand what we do well and to find ways to build on that and improve that or adapt that to the new reality we'll face moving forward. And the very first thing we want to focus on there is the idea of international partnerships and international collaboration. And again, you're going to see a lot of these themes, a lot of these points carry through the various themes. You know, this is the international application of the local community partnership concept that Missouri State has done so well and is so well known for. But this sense of stability, continuity, trust is what we get from these international partnerships. We have about 70 plus partners around the world in 25 countries, not just China, countries all around the world. And those partnerships allow us to do unique programs that have that kind of continuity. Dual degree programs, our branch campus in China, I mentioned previously, cohort programs. So we want to build on this strength. And even at a time when national governments have friction, these partnerships that we've developed through the years are very deep, and we're looking for opportunities to continue to expand those, not necessarily more partners, but more and more effective programs. So moving to the next slide, we'll try to identify what that looks like. What that looks like is really the way we focused our three stories in global engagement. One is from a faculty perspective. One is from the perspective of international students on our campus. Another is from the perspective of domestic students. How do those three categories of our campus community experience and can have a greater international engagement experience through our international partnerships? So it'll make more sense with the first story. So we'll shift to Mike Harris. You're going to meet Mike Harris in the first story. And I'll go back to the tradition we have here of reading the stories and we get everything organized. But I think you'll see a few subpoints and themes come through this particular story. The headline is Faculty Research Collaboration on a Global Level. Mike Harris is a sociology professor at Missouri State. And like many people, he came out of the COVID-19 pandemic with a lot of questions on his mind. The question he couldn't shake, though, was why some countries did so well at suppressing coronavirus and others struggled mightily. It's not a simple question, It's unlikely to have a simple answer, but Mike decided to tackle this research question by building an interdisciplinary team of MSU faculty and researchers, student researchers, from public health, political science, economics, psychology, and sociology. With the help of the Missouri State University International Programs Office, we connected with a similar interdisciplinary team of researchers and students from a MSU partner university in Korea, in South Korea, a country that was highly touted and has been extremely effective in combating COVID-19. So this research is ongoing. In the future, it's ongoing, but the initial findings are encouraging. It's yielded some qualitative and quantitative results that do indicate a variety of factors. It wasn't a simple question, not a simple answer. Cultural factors, government structure, public health, capacity, economic motivations, all those things played a role in exploring and explaining the disparate outcomes between South Korea and the United States. So this interdisciplinary and intercultural collaboration between faculty and students has been strong. They've received recognition, which is always nice, for helping both countries prepare for the next global health challenge. The students who participated are learning valuable lessons, and they'll be able to take those into their careers. And aside from that, the research is being used to develop curriculum for an interdisciplinary class on integrated approaches to global crises. The curriculum will be shared with other universities as well. So you notice a theme there, some big ideas related to interdisciplinary, related to those international and intercultural connections that can happen. And these things can happen virtually. They don't even have to be together in person to start on this research and to proceed and continue, because they have a team in each country working together. So that's one big idea. That's one shared from the standpoint of a faculty member. We'll move to the next category, which is international student experience. We have three categories essentially for describing this theme. This slide gives you a snapshot of the number of students we have, and at 1,492, easy to remember with the Christopher Columbus reference, is inclusive of the students on our campus here in Springfield, international students, also students at our branch campus and other program location in China, and our online students abroad. So in the future, now and moving forward, that's the way we will define and count international students. So I wanted to put that into context. Later, you'll see a slide that shows some of the trends we've experienced. Those students represent 74 countries. For us that work in international programs, sorry about that. For us that work in international programs, our highest priority is welcoming and supporting these international students. What are the benefits, though, for all of us? Okay, it's the right thing to do, absolutely, and we do a great job of that, of supporting international students who come here. But what can we do as staff, faculty, the community, a campus community, to see and be involved in advancing the advantage of that? International students diversify the campus, they provide a global perspective, they give us all those opportunities for interaction and learning. And a key point here is that intercultural learning flows in both directions. We need to approach this from the mindset that we are learning at the same time we're sharing, and so are the international students who come here to join us in Springfield. So the big idea, as we go to the next slide, the big idea in this category is what can we do, and 74% of us on this call were staff members, and we have a big role to play in this. What do we do to create and maintain an environment in which that type of intercultural learning occurs, where the learning and the friendship and the curiosity flows in both directions? Now, this is a great, moment where I guess we're all thinking about joining hands and singing Kumbaya, but it's more than just for the peace and understanding. I mean, that's an important goal, obviously, and something we strive for. But this slide in the upper left shows you it's not just about the peace and understanding aspect of it, but there are some practical benefits for students as well. The Duke University study we quote here shows that students who interact, American students who interact with international students gain in self-confidence, they gain in leadership skills, they gain in cultural competence and quantitative skills. Those are benefits that are tangible. Those are benefits that will help them in their future jobs. Those are students that are in that 90% that don't automatically and instinctively seek out international education. And our role is to help them connect to that here while they're on our campus. So we'll go to a story that explains this. The next story is from the international student perspective. And this is one, we can move ahead to that next slide. This is global engagement from the international student perspective. And I want you to listen to this story with a few thoughts in mind. One is the experience of an international student coming here and thinking about the courage it takes, the trust from parents that it takes, the financial commitment it takes, the heavy workload and preparation and preparing for the experience it takes, and the incredible goals that are there for future payback for the experience and commitment international students are undertaking. I want you to think about it from that perspective, but also think about it from the standpoint of how this story intersects with us as faculty members, as staff members, as people in the community, as fellow students, if any students happen to be in the audience. We'll go ahead with the story. At its best, the international student experience benefits the student and the host university. It provides opportunities for intercultural learning to flow in both directions. Missouri State's customized cohort program in digital film and TV production brings students from a Chinese university to Missouri State for 2 years to complete a dual degree through one of our partner university programs. Jiawei Liu was determined for her participation in this program to be more than an academic experience. It's important, big part of it, that she wanted more than that. She had a goal to gain confidence in her English speaking skills, to make friends with American students, and to share her Chinese culture with the campus community here in Springfield. Jiawei came to the right university to realize those goals. Along with the other students in her cohort program, Jiawei lived in the new International House residence hall, where she and her roommates had 2 American students as suite mates. So they stayed within their cohort for roommates, but they were able to branch out to have American suite mates. They struggled at first, as you can imagine, with communication, but soon they became close friends. Jiawei signed up for the International Friends program and enjoyed going to local sporting events and celebrating American holidays with her host family. She joined the Chinese traditional dance team and performed at the annual Chinese New Year celebration before a future packed house in the PSU theater. Jiawei gained confidence and was starting to feel like a global ambassador. She was starting to realize those goals that in some ways sounded so simple, but were very profound for her. Her courses in the media, journalism, and film department were engaging as well. She particularly liked the way group projects were organized so she could work together with students outside of her home university cohort. For her capstone project, Jiawei joined with an American student to produce a digital documentary exploring cultural misperceptions that cloud relations between US and China. That sounds pretty relevant right now and probably will be in the future. After graduation, Jiawei continued her studies at Missouri State in the Master of Professional Studies program, the MPS program, with the focus on producing and screenwriting. So that's Jiawei Liu, a future student who I'm glad to introduce you to. And I want us to just think about how we intersect with that story and how we can make that type of experience more commonplace. And not an exceptional thing, but a commonplace experience for international students coming here. We'll shift to the third category now. The third category is global engagement at home, abroad, and virtually. And this is in itself a bit of a new idea, a bit of a big idea for this program. Right now, this is what we think the next era of international education is going to look like. This idea in terms of how we're defining international education, this idea that you can take part in it personally with an in-person experience through study away or education abroad, but also virtual education, virtual exchange, different kinds of ways to connect digitally. It will incorporate global learning objectives across the curriculum. Again, a way we will reach that broader percentage of U.S. students who are part of the Missouri State community who haven't had that opportunity to be exposed to an international or global perspective. And we'll connect with our international partner universities to make this happen. So we can move on to the next slide, and I'll share that the big idea here is really to be prepared for success in an interconnected world. Students must develop this global perspective, gain experience working in intercultural team settings. And one way to do this, a way we want to introduce, and we really hope that it meets with positive feedback from the academic side of the university, and that's the idea of the global classroom. The global classroom is a way to connect through our partner universities, students here in the U.S. with students, teams of students from other universities abroad. So I want to introduce you to Christy. Christy is from Lockwood. This is our third and final story. So keep thinking about your questions because we're just about to that point for questions on this topic, this theme, and others as well. But I want to introduce you to Christy. She is a U.S. student whose future came into focus through international experience. It's a little bit like the story Aja shared, where a student came here and through organizations he was involved in and things he learned through classes, his future became more clear. His opportunities came into focus. Christy had a similar experience. Christy is a Missouri State student from Lockwood, Missouri. She grew up on a farm. She loves animals and is fascinated by plants. She's deeply interested in the natural world as she has experienced it running around Dade County growing up. She was the first in her family to attend college. Again, think back to Lyle's comments and the prevalence of first-generation students here. This is one you're going to meet in the future. She came to Missouri State to major in biology with a vague goal to possibly teach or do research in the future. She knew what she wanted to study. She didn't know what she wanted to do with that field, though. The scope of her interest greatly expanded, though, during her second year at Missouri State when she took General Biology 2, required course for her. This course featured, though, a virtual global classroom section with students from Brazil. So during this course on the Missouri State campus, a section of the course included students from Brazil studying the same topic at their university, but the students were able to do this together with Zoom and other platforms to connect them. They were able to study not just from the U.S. perspective, but also explore the vast biodiversity of the Amazon region. And that totally opened Christy's perspective to the world beyond Missouri. There's a world beyond Southwest Missouri, and she was being exposed to it. Motivated by the course, she joined an education abroad program for the summer before her senior year. So it started with this virtual experience and then continued into an in-person experience. This program brought her together with a multinational team. It included American students, Brazilian students, Chinese students, and Indian students from 4 countries. This group of 15 students worked together on a project of comparative studies in conservation biology. So the U.S. and the other international students from Missouri State went to Brazil. They were interacting with Brazilian students there. And they spent 2 weeks based in Manaus, Brazil, in the Amazon region, studying the structure and dynamics of the Amazon rainforest. But what's even better is 2 weeks, after those 2 weeks in Brazil, all of the students came back here, including the Brazilian students. So that same team of students worked together and went to the MSU Bull Shoals field station down on Bull Shoals Lake and studied the ecosystems of Southwest Missouri. So it was like a home and home exchange to really get that idea of comparative studies firmly in place. Well, those international experiences had a profound effect on Christy. Now she is a staff botanist at the Emilio Geldi Museum of Natural History in Belém, Brazil. And she has plans to return to rural Missouri in 2 years to teach biology to the next generation of students. But the way she's able to do that is by continuing as a graduate student here at Missouri State online through the Master of Arts in Teaching program. It gets her eligible with her teaching certificate, allows her to come back after she gets this completely full international experience that started virtually, continues in person, and she's able to bring that back and inspire that next generation of first generation students from rural Missouri to have a perspective of the world beyond just what they see here. So that's Christy. So you've met Christy, you've met Jaway, you've met a future sociology professor named Mike Harris. And with that, I hope we've given you a glimpse of what the future of global engagement and international education may look like at Missouri State. We'd love your feedback on where you fit into that, what other ideas we might be missing. And in all of these areas, are we thinking bold enough? Are there things that we've missed or that ideas we've shared that might allow you to build on that and add to the vision? So Suzanne, I'll turn it back over to you so we can have that discussion.
Thanks, Brad. We do have a couple questions for you. They're a little more real time, but I think it can allow us to think more broadly in the future. The first one is, in your long-range vision, what strategies will MSU implement to engage more faculty in channeling more domestic students to get involved in service and experiential learning of international cultures from our international student body?
Well, we have one organization that's already in place, and it's doing very well, and I see it growing and being a platform for that kind of connection. It's called the GREAT program, Globally Responsible Education and Teaching. And Peng Zhang from the Office of China Programs and Dr. Helen Zhuang from the International Leadership and Training Center are the main staff people for that. And we also have a faculty advisory board that includes representatives from all of the colleges. And that group's been meeting, and that's a big part of what they are doing, is promoting and getting the idea of the global classroom and the international virtual exchange out there. But as one of the previous questions indicated, we really need collaboration at the college and departmental level to involve more and more faculty with this idea, and to help look for opportunities for that kind of practical experience and that interchange between teams from the two countries. Where we help with international programs is providing those connections with partner universities. From the faculty standpoint, it may start with something as simple as just when you build the syllabus for your class or update it for the next time around, step back and think, what are global best practices in my field? What are the global issues? What are the issues beyond the United States or beyond our region that have an impact on this topic? And if there's something there that comes back as what you'd want to focus on, we can help you connect with that part of the world where there may be a faculty member from another partner university who wants to explore the same thing. And then we get out of the way, you guys get together and come up with creative ways to have students work together on those kind of experiences. And then obviously with international students on our campus, we can make those connections in real time and in person as they're here.
Okay, next is, in what ways can MSU support equity and access to international experiences and global education?
It's always a big issue. Elizabeth Strong heads up our Education Abroad office. The new name will be Education Abroad starting next month. So this may be the last day or about the last day for the Study Away office. We've changed the name of that, so it's a good chance to announce that. She puts a heavy focus on trying to reach out to students who, for financial means, or they just don't see themselves in a study away opportunity, to really reach out and find ways to get students involved. We have been able to increase the number of underrepresented students that are experiencing study away. Obviously, study away is virtually shut down this year and last year, but that continues to be a high priority. Part of it's on the funding side and scholarships, and we have programs at the college level and supported by President Smart and Provost Einhellig and Dr. Baker to do some matching funds. So that helps to some degree. But a big part of it is really coming up with programs that allow students to participate. Work schedules sometimes make it very difficult for some students to have long-term, semester-long study away programs. But the short-term faculty-led are more accessible. We're putting a big emphasis on that. And I guess the point I'd really emphasize here is, even if they can't travel in person for financial reasons or other family commitments or whatever it might be, there are still opportunities to do virtual international exchange and still have that be a valuable experience. We've worked on those quite a bit during this past year. Doesn't replicate every bit of the experience, obviously, but for some programs, it can be a very good door opener, at least to that international perspective.
Great, thank you. And we have a kind of a question, but I think I like to think of it as kind of expanding the conversation and doing some of the brainstorming that we were asking for. The question says, I've not seen many mentions of world languages and their role in global engagement or cultural competence. How has the committee factored in language learning into this plan?
Good question. I'll take that one too, although anybody else is welcome to jump in. Well, we're very fortunate at Missouri State with the English Language Institute and the Foreign Language Institute to have a broad offering of international languages, especially the less commonly taught and learned languages. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities within modern and classical languages, but in partnership with MCL and international programs and other local universities, we have the Foreign Language Institute. What's really a good opportunity in some ways for international students coming here is for them to be an ambassador for their own language, just like they're an ambassador for their own culture. And that kind of interaction we can create between U.S. students who maybe have not been exposed to international languages to have that in a conversation corner or face-to-face. So there's a lot of those things already happening. We'd certainly welcome new ideas and creative approaches to expand on that. But from an institutional side, we have that from the English Language Institute, preparing international students to come in and speak English and understand and read English at a competitive level and a level to meet our admission standards and to be successful here at Missouri State, but also to use language as that connecting point or that barrier or conduit for cultural sharing between students. We do both those things.
Thanks, Brad. I'm going to read a question. I'll answer this one, Brad. Well, I lost it. Here we go. Okay. How does Missouri State Long Range Plan complement instead of compete with MU and other regional universities' long range plans to empower Missourians as a whole? And I think in answer to that, we, as a university, we focus on, of course, a lot of Southwest Missouri, but also an economic development down here. And you'll see that in JVIC. You see that in our eFactory. But we also have programs that are serve various areas, so that aren't in competition with Mizzou. So we have programs in West Plains that we get funding for. We also have a number in Springfield that on this campus that we get funding for. But we also we complement one another and work with one another. So, for example, we partner with Missouri S&T on an engineering program so that we offer several engineering programs here on campus in Springfield, working with S&T. We also provide support for the Mizzou Med School students who are working down here in Springfield, I think doing their last third and fourth years down here, and we provide support for them in that area. And so I think you'll find that we're not looking to compete with our fellow universities across the state, but we do try to complement one another and focus on areas where we have the expertise. So, for example, Mizzou received a fair chunk of funding for their medical center, which is an important part of supporting the state. And so we do try to complement one another in that way. I think, let's see, we also had, what are the short-term goal plans to measure the progress towards the long-term goal plans? So I think Clif mentioned this, but each year we put together an action plan that has a number of items on there that are in support of our long-range plan and the metrics that we develop for the long-range plan. And those action plans, action items are assigned to various people, various organizations who are accountable for them throughout the year and have to report out on them in the following year. Clif, would you like to expand on that?
we have a yearly action plan, but as I said before, under this plan, we really want to build ideas in global engagement, in inclusivity in the academic side from the ground up, and so as people within colleges and divisions work on particular proposals, they'll surface up through the chain of supervision and be included in those action plans as we work to figure out how we advance the university in these key areas.
Great. So I think, Clif, would you like to wrap this up for us today?
Yeah, so thanks to the 248 people that stuck with us all the way through. We appreciate that. We encourage everyone to go to the Long Range Plan website, look at it in more detail, share your thoughts with Suzanne and Dean Wall as they work to finalize the plan. And then ultimately, we'll be creating those metrics that after the plan is put together, that then we'll be working on and measuring our progress on. A couple of final thoughts. So, there were some questions about compensation. There were questions about specific tactics. There were questions about, working for funding from the legislature. We'll keep doing all those things. But what this plan focuses on are what are the ideas, the major themes that could make us different, set us apart, and elevate us, as opposed to those into nitty gritty things that we just have to do, like hiring and compensation and advocacy. So we've seen those things in past plans. They will continue, but they're just not a part of this plan, where we hope to focus on some bigger picture kind of ideas. Also know that we've got a strategic enrollment management plan, and which has specific goals for recruitment, for retention, for graduation. That's going to work hand in glove with this plan. Also know that we're finalizing our visioning guide as we work to see, how do we continue to improve and upgrade and renovate and add new facilities that go hand in glove with the academic ideas that we're talking about here. So if you don't see something that you're used to seeing here, doesn't mean we're not still working on it. Doesn't mean it's not still important. It may just be somewhere else. And so again, we'll be sharing all of those things as they are finalized over the next several weeks, and your participation in all of them is going to be critical. And so as Dr. Roselle said when she kicked this open, we do want input. You're free to send me an email directly, to send Dean Wall an email directly, to send our provost an email directly, to send Suzanne Shaw an email directly, to fill out a form on the long range plan site. Get us your thoughts, spend some time with the plan over the next several weeks, and then we'll be working to improve it and then working to execute it over the next 5+ years. Again, thanks for joining us today. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Let's finish strong. Only 2 more weeks to go. Take care, everyone.